obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Kalam karma svabhavam cha mayesho mayaya saveya atmana yadyacha praptam vibhu bhushuru upadade. Hare Krishna.
The Lord, who is the controller of all energies, thus creates by his own potency, eternal time, the fate of all living entities and their particular nature for which they were created, and he again merges them independently.
Hare Krishna. Kalad gun vyaktit kara parinama svabhavata karmano janam mahatah purushadhishthita adbhut. Hare
After
Krishna.
the incarnation of the first Purusa, the Mahatattva or the principles of material creation takes place, and then time is manifested. And in course of time, the three qualities appear. Nature means the three qualitative appearances. They transform into activities.
Hare Krishna. Text number 23. Mahatastu vikurv vanadradhaj satvo vanhirtat tamah pradhanast भवद द्रव्य ज्ञान क्रियात्मक. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Material activities are caused by the Mahatattva being agitated. At first, there is a transformation of the modes of goodness and passion, and later, due to the mode of ignorance, matter, its knowledge, and different activities of material knowledge come into play. Hare Krishna.
Sohankara iti prokto vikurvan sambhutritraadha vaikarikaste jasascha tamaschati yadbhita dravya shakti kriya shakti jnana shakti riti prabho. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Self-centered materialistic ego, thus being transformed into three features, becomes known as the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance in three divisions, namely the powers that evolve matter, knowledge of material creations, and the intelligence that guides such materialistic activities. Narada, you are quite competent to understand this.
Tamasada api bhuta dervi kurvanad bhunannabha tasya matra gunah shabdo lingam yad drishtyo shachyo yayo. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. From the darkness of false ego, the first of the five elements, namely the sky, is generated. Its subtle form is the quality of sound, exactly as the shear is in relationship with the scene.
Hare Krishna. Text number 26 to 29. Nabsotha vikurvarvanadbhutah sparsha guno anilah pranvanya cha shabdavam cha prana ojah saho balam vayorapi vikurvanat kalakarma svabhavatah उद्धपद्यत तेजो वै रूपवत स्पर्श शब्दवतः तेजस्तु विकुर्वाणाधि दसी धम्बो रसात्मकं रूपवत स्पर्श वचाम्भो घोषवच परान्वयात् विशेषस्तु विकुर्वाण अधम्भोसो गन्धवानुभूत परानवयादः रसस्पर्श शब्दरूप गुणान्वितः. हरे कृष्ण.
Hare Krishna. Because the sky is transformed, the air is generated with the quality of touch, and by previous succession, the air is also full of sound and the basic principles of duration of life, sense, perception, mental power, and bodily strength. When the air is transformed in course of time, and nature's course, fire is generated, taking the shape with the sense of touch and sound. Since fire is also transformed, there is a manifestation of water full of juice and taste. As previously, it also has form and touch and is also full of sound. And water being transformed from all the variegatedness of on earth appears odorous and as previously becomes qualitatively full of juice, touch, sound, and form respectively.
हरे कृष्ण.
Hare Krishna.
वैकारिकान्मनो यज्ञे देवा वैकारिका दश दिग्वातार्क प्रचेतो अश्रवहिन्ह द्रौपेन्द्र मित्रका. हरे कृष्ण.
Hare Krishna. From the mode of goodness, the mind is generated and becomes manifest, as also the 10 demigods controlling the bodily movements. Such demigods are known as the controller of directions, the controller of air, the sun god, the father of Daksha Prajapati, the Ashwini Kumaras, the fire god, the king of heaven, the worshipable deity in heaven, the chief of Adityas, the Brahmaji, the Prajapati, all come into existence. Hare Krishna.
हरे कृष्ण. तेजसात् तु विकर्णादीन्द्रियाणि दशा भवन् ज्ञान शक्तिः क्रियाशक्ति बुद्धि प्राणश्च तेजसो श्रोत्रं तव गरनादि जभ्या वाग्दो मे दृढ़ारिपावः. हरे कृष्ण.
Hare Krishna. By further transformation of the mode of passion, the sense organs like the ears, skin, nose, eyes, tongue, mouth, hands, genitals, legs, and the outlet for evacuating, together with intelligence and living energy, are all generated. Hare Krishna.
हरे कृष्ण. यदते असंगता भावा भूतेन्द्रिये मनोगुणः यदा यत्न निर्माणेन शेकुर्ब्रह्म वित्तम. हरे कृष्ण.
Hare Krishna. O Narada, the best of transcendentalists, the forms of the body cannot take place as long as these created parts, namely the elements, sense, mind, and the modes of nature, are not assembled. Hare Krishna.
हरे कृष्ण. तदा संहते चार्योन्य भगवत् शक्ति चोदितः सदसतत्त्वमुपादाय चोभयं ससृजुहृदय. हरे कृष्ण.
Hare Krishna. Thus, when all these become assembled by force of energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this universe certainly came into being by accepting both the primary and secondary causes of creation. Hare Krishna.
वर्षपूगसहस्रानते तद्दण्डमुद्गकेशयम् कालकर्म स्वभावस्थो जीवो जीवं जैवयात्. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So thus all the universes remained thousands of eons within the water, the casual ocean, and the Lord of living beings entering in each of them caused them to be fully animated. Hare Krishna.
स एव पुरुषस्त तस्मादण्डं निर्भिद्य निर्गत सहस्रोर्वर्ग गृग्बाह्यवेक्षय सहस्रानन शीर्षवान्. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. The Lord Mahavishnu, although lying in the casual ocean, came out of it, dividing himself as Hiranyagarbha. He entered into each universe and assumed the Virat Rupa with thousands of legs, arms, mouths, heads, etc. Hare Krishna.
यस्येहाव्यवेलोर कान कल्पयन्ति मनीषिणयः कट्यादिभिरदः सप्त सप्तोधर्वं जगन्नाधिभिः. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Great philosophers imagine Great philosophers imagine that the complete planetary systems in the universe are displays of the different upper and lower limbs of the universal body of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Anil Prabhuji, you're muted. Can you unmute yourself and carry on with text at
Sorry, Hare
37,
Krishna.
please?
Hare Krishna. पुरुषस्य मुखं वयं क्षत्रमेतस्य बाहवः उभोर्वैश्यो भगवतः पद्मभ्यां शूद्रो व्ययजायतः. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. The Brahmanas represent his mouth, the Kshatriyas his arms, the Vaisyas his thighs, and the Sudras are born of his legs. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. भूलोकः कल्पितः पद्भ्यायां भुवर्लोको अस्य नाभितः हृदय स्वरलोक पुरुषा महर्लोको महात्मनः. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. From the forefront of the chest up to the neck of the universal form of the Lord.
Sorry, Mataji, you have to read text number 38. Translation, please. The lower planetary systems.
Sorry. Hare Krishna. The lower planetary systems up to the limit of the earthly stratum are said to be situated in his legs. The middle planetary system beginning with the Bhuvarloka are situated in his navel, and the still higher planetary systems occupied by the demigods and highly cultured sages and saints are situated in the chest of the Supreme Lord. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. ग्रीवायां जनलोको अस्य तपोलोकः सतनद्वयात् मूर्धन्बिः सत्यलोकस्तु ब्रह्मलोक सनातनः. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. From the forefront of the chest up to the neck of the universal form of the Lord are situated the planetary systems named Jana Loka and the Tapaloka, where Satyaloka, the topmost planetary system, is situated on the head of the form. The spiritual planets, however, are eternal. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. तत्कटयाम चातलम कृलिप्तमूरुभ्यायम वितलम विभो. Hare Krishna. तत्कटायां चातलं कृलिप्तमूरुभ्यां वितलं विभो जानुभ्यां सुतलं शुद्धं जङ्घभ्यां तु तुलातलं महातलं तु गुल्फाभ्यां प्रपदाभ्यां रसातलम् पतालं पादतलत् इति लोकमयः पुमान्. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. My dear Lord Narada, now from me that there are 7 lower planetary systems out of the total 14. The first planetary system, known as Atala, is situated on the waist. The second, Vitala, is situated on the thighs. The third, Sutala, on the knees. The fourth, Talatala, on the shanks. And the fifth, Mahatala, on the ankles. The sixth, Rasatala, on the upper portion of the feet. The seventh, Patala, on the soles of the feet. Thus, the Virat form of the Lord is full of all planetary systems. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. भूर्लोकः कल्पितः पद्भ्यां भूर्लोकोऽस्य नाभितः सवर्लोकः कल्पितो मूर्धन इति वा लोककल्पना. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Others may divide the whole planetary system into 3 divisions, namely the lower planetary system on the legs and the middle planetary system on the navel, the upper planetary system Sarvaloka, from the chest to the head of the Supreme Personality. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Prabhu, have you finished reciting or you need to unmute?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, we finished reciting.
Oh, you finished?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Anil Krishna Prabhu and Sharmila Mataji.
मैं दंडवत प्रणाम प्रभु जी.
Salavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
I
Prabhu.
was very appreciative of you saying the Mahamand Hare Krishna before and after. I wanted to share this verse with you. This is a verse from the 8th canto, 26th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Mantratas tantratas chidram desha kalaha vashtata sarvam karoti nishtridam anusankirtanam tava. The translation of this verse is, there may be discrepancies in pronouncing the mantras and observing the regulator principles. And moreover, there may be discrepancies in regard to time, place, person, and paraphernalia. But when your Lordship's holy name is chanted, everything becomes faultless. So by your constantly repeating the mantra, Krishna's name Hare Krishna, before and after, whatever you've recited today has become faultless, even if there was some apparent faults. So that's very nice. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for tolerating my pronunciation and appreciating it. All mercy of the Guru Maharaj and Lord Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Very good. Welcome, dear devotees, to tonight's chat session. Today we continue with Canto number 2, chapter number 5. And today we will be discussing text number 36 and 37 in more detail. So let's begin like we traditionally do. Oh, I need to change my camera. Just 1 minute. So we'll recite the Mangala Charanam prayers. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Malitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yatha Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sahagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastete Tapta Kanchana Gourange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sutadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namam Vishwadaya Krishna Pashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesh Shunyavadi Pasticha Deshatarine Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we continue with chapter number 5, the cause of all causes. And today we are commencing with the last part of this chapter, the last section. If we could break up this chapter into sections. So just to have a quick recap to put this into perspective, into context. So Maharaj Parikshit wanted to, at the last moments of his life, hear about the Leelas of the Lord. And the Leelas of the Lord can be divided into different categories, but primarily the Leela the Lord performs in the spiritual world, and the Leela the Lord performs in the material world. Maharaj Parikshit felt that it would be more beneficial for him if he started off with understanding the Lord's Leela in the material world. And he asked questions in that regard, to which Shukdev Goswami had responded. And essentially, the Leela of the Lord in the material world is in relation to the Purusha avatars and creation. So from text 21 to 31, we've been discussing what is known as Karana Shrishti. Karana Shrishti is a description of how the various elements are formulated. how they come into being, and that is described. And then after the description of the Karana Shrishti, which is the basic elements, there is a description of what is known as Karya Shrishti, and that's verses 32 to 35. After the 23 elements have been described, how are these elements then assembled? So that is Karya Shrishti, which we've been discussing. So from the 23 elements, we have the assembly taking place by the arrangement of the Lords of Maya Shakti. And after 1,000 years of the assembling of the elements taking place, the Lord enters into each of the universes as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and then it is mentioned he expands into the Virat Rupa form. Garbhodakshaya Vishnu expands into the Virat Rupa form. Now this is a very interesting part of the Srimad Bhagavatam. How the Lord expands into the Virat Rupa form. What is this Virat Rupa form? What is its significance? And in the verse that we're going to discuss today, text number 16, 36, Srila Prabhupada mentioned something very, very interesting. So let's discuss that verse. Verse 36. Yasyeha yabai lokan kalpayanti manisinaha kachyaha dibir adha sapta saptordvan jagana dibhi. Word for word synonyms. Yasya, who's Iha in the universe, Avaya, by the limbs of the body, Lokan, all the planets, Kalpayanti, imagine, Manisina, great philosophers, Kati Adibir, down from the waist, Ada, downwards, Sapta, 7 systems, Sapta Urvam, and the 7 systems upwards, Jagana, Adibi, front portion. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Great philosophers imagine that the complete planetary systems in the universe are displays of the different upper and lower limbs of the universal body of the Lord. Purport. The word kalpayanti, or imagine, is significant. The Virat universal form of the Absolute is an imagination of the speculative philosophers who are unable to adjust to the eternal two-handed form of Lord Shri Krishna. Although the universal form as imagined by the great philosophers is one of the features of the Lord, it is more or less imaginary. It is said that the 7 upper planetary systems are situated above the waist of the universal form, whereas the lower planetary systems are situated below his waist. The idea impressed herein is that the Supreme Lord is conscious of every part of his body, and nowhere in the creation is there anything beyond his control. So very interesting verse in the purport. So the first point being made at the start of the description of the Virat Rupa is that this is an imaginary form. Now, we know according to Vedic science that there is no scope for imagination. There is no scope for speculative conjuring of what is truth and reality. Vedic science is very precise. We accept knowledge from a higher source. There's no need to speculate. And we accept that as praman, as truth, as evidence. So yeah, we are being confronted in the Bhagavatam with a situation where an imaginary form of the Lord is being put forward or described. But this is an bona fide imaginary form of the Lord. So the automatic question would arise, which Srila Prabhupada addresses in the purport. Why bring about and describe an imaginary form of the Lord? What would be the purpose? Srila Prabhupada explains that. And he also says, this imagined form is one of the features of the Lord, although it is more or less imaginary. So I just want to refer to one purport of Srila Prabhupada's in the 3rd canto, where Srila Prabhupada explains that very nicely. So I'll go to that purport, and I put it in the form of a slide. Okay, we'll get this in the next verse, but in the purport, this is what Srila Prabhupada says. And this is from the 3rd canto. From the 1st canto, 3rd chapter, text number 28. The conception of the Virat, universal form of the Lord, as appearing in the material world is imaginary. It is so to enable the less intelligent and neophytes to adjust to the idea of God's having form. But factually, the Lord has no material form. Purport. The conception of the Lord known as the Vishvarup or the Virat Rup is particularly not mentioned along with the various incarnations of the Lord. So Prabhupada is saying the Virat Rup is not mentioned as an incarnation of the Lord. And Prabhupada will substantiate. Because all the incarnations of the Lord mentioned above are transcendental, and there is not a tinge of materialism in their bodies. There is no difference between the body and self, as there is in the conditioned soul. The Virat Rupa is conceived for those who are just neophyte worshippers. For them, the material Virat Rupa is presented, and it will be explained in the 2nd canto. In the Virat Rupa, the material manifestations of different planets have been conceived as his legs, hands, etc. Actually, all such descriptions are for the neophytes. The neophytes cannot conceive of anything beyond matter. The material conception is not counted in the list of his factual forms. So Prabhupada is making the point here. The purpose of this Virat Rupa, Prabhupada, in various places, he explains that this is a temporary form of the Lord. It's not permanent. And secondly, it's not counted as the incarnations of the Lord because it is an imaginary form that is described for the neophytes. And what particular problem do the neophytes have? For the neophyte, it is a very difficult for them to conceive that the Lord is got form. Why? Because the neophytes, because of the difficult experience with the material world, their logic flows like this. material world means form. Form means suffering. Opposite of the material world is the spiritual world. Spiritual world means no suffering. So for there to be no suffering, there has to be no form. That's how their logic goes. So for them to come to the point of extricating themselves from the material, extricating them from the sense of form, to conceive of the Lord and the world in terms of form is very difficult. So they need to make a transition. So they need to come from a point of one extreme, there is no form, to the point of the Lord's transcendental two-armed form. So to help the neophytes transition from this point of struggling to see the Lord in terms of any form, this temporary imaginary form as the Virat Rupa is described. It's described. And this Virat Rupa is described in these verses in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The different planetary systems, the different avanas and the ashrams, they are described as the form of the Lord. Where is it now? Yeah. So in the following verses, we will see how to give a conception of the form of the Lord. The different aspects of the Lord is described. So let us go now to text number 37. Sorry. Well, I think I'm jumping a bit ahead there. Well, this verse explains that, the complete planetary systems in the universe are displays of the different upper and lower limbs of the universal body of the Lord. And as we move from text number 38 onwards to 42, we'll see each of the limbs and the planets, how they are described. So maybe I shouldn't get too much into that. But text number 37 is describing the Varnashram system, how to conceive of the Lord. Purusasya mukam brahma shatram etasya bhavaha bhavaha urva vaishyo bhagavataha pradyam shudra vyaja yata. Translation: the Brahmanas represent his mouth, the Kshatriyas his arms, the Vaishyas his thighs, and the Shudras are born of his legs. Purport: all living beings are stated to be the parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, and how they are so is explained in this verse. The four divisions of human society, namely the intelligent class, the Brahmanas, the administrative class, the Kshatriyas, the mercantile class, the Vaishyas, and the laborer class, the Shudras, are all different parts of the body of the Lord. As such, no one is different from the Lord. The mouth of the body and the legs of the body are non-different constitutionally. But the mouth or the head of the body is qualitatively more important than the legs. At the same time, the mouth, the legs, the arms, and thighs are all component parts of the body. These limbs of the body of the Lord are meant to serve the complete whole. The mouth is meant for speaking and eating, and the arms are meant for protection of the body The legs are meant for carrying the body, and the waist of the body is meant for maintaining the body. The intelligent class in society, therefore, must speak on behalf of the body, as well as accept foodstuff to satisfy the hunger of the body. The hunger of the Lord is to accept the fruits of sacrifice. The Brahmanas, or the intelligent class, must be very expert in performing such sacrifices, and the subordinate classes must join in such sacrifices. To speak of the Supreme Lord means to glorify the Lord by means of propagating the knowledge of the Lord as it is, broadcasting the factual nature of the Lord and the factual position of all other parts of the whole body. The Brahmanas, therefore, are required to know the Vedas, or the ultimate source of knowledge. Veda means knowledge, and Anta means the end of it. According to the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord is the source of everything. Aham sarvasya prabhava. And thus the end of all knowledge, Vedanta, is to know the Lord, to know our relationship with Him, and to act according to that relationship only. The parts of the body are related to the body. Similarly, the living being must know his relationship with the Lord. The human life is especially meant for this purpose, namely to know the factual relationship of every living being with the Supreme Lord. Without knowing this relationship, the human life is spoiled. The intelligent class of men, the Brahmanas, are therefore especially responsible for broadcasting this knowledge of our relationship with the Lord and leading the general mass of people to the right path. The administrative class is meant for protecting the living beings so that they can serve this purpose. The mercantile class is meant for producing food grains and distributing them to the complete human society so that the whole population is given a chance to live comfortably and discharge the duties of human life. The mercantile class is also required to give protection to the cows in order to get sufficient milk and milk products, which alone can give the proper health and intelligence to maintain a civilization perfectly meant for knowledge of the ultimate truth. And the laborer class, who are neither intelligent nor powerful, can help by physical services to the other classes and thus be benefited by their cooperation. Therefore, the universe is a complete unit in relationship with the Lord. And without this relationship with the Lord, the whole human society is disturbed and is without any peace or prosperity. This is confirmed in the Vedas. Brahmanosya mukam asid bahu rajanya kritaha. So, in terms of conceiving of the Lord, this imaginary form, this verse is saying that the Brahmanas represent his mouth, the Kshatriyas his arms, the Vaishyas his thighs, and the Shudras are born of his legs. So if we examine human society, we see naturally, even without bringing the Vedic divisions into it, just naturally, human society is divided into the intellectual class, the class that protects, the class that produces, and the class that works and provides labor. Prabhupada says constitutionally, there is no difference. The legs and the belly and the arms and the head, they all form part of the body. They all are constituents part of the body. So constitutionally is not different. But Prabhupada says qualitatively, there is difference. There is difference. Prabhupada talks about the Brahmanas, they are the head, just like the head is the center, the intellectual center of the body. If the head is not there, then the body will not be able to function, because everything is coming from the brain and so on. So the Brahmanas, they represent the mouth or the head of the Lord. And Prabhupada makes the point that what is the duty of the Brahmanas? The duty of the Brahmanas is to disseminate spiritual knowledge. That is a very important part of the Brahmanas. So Srila Prabhupada, when he came into the West, and he formed the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, Prabhupada said, human society in the large is functioning without a head, because there is no proper Brahmana class. Prabhupada said his movement, in the first instance, was to re-establish the head, the Brahmana, the Brahmanical culture. And the main part of Brahmanical culture is to disseminate spiritual knowledge. Prabhupada says Vedanta. And what is the culmination of Vedanta? What is the end of Vedanta? It is Krishna. Krishna says, by all of the Vedas, he is to be known. So ultimately, the Brahmanas are meant to enlighten society about Krishna. And as long as there is a section of the population that is constantly disseminating spiritual knowledge, then the purpose of ISKCON is being fulfilled. This is very, very important. And we should also remember, if we consider ourselves part of ISKCON, part of our duties in being part of this ISKCON society is to be involved, either directly or indirectly, in the Sankirtan mission, in the propagation of the holy names of the Lord, in the propagation of transcendental literature, distributing transcendental literature, and then speaking about it. We should always consider that this is Srila Prabhupada's mission, and if I'm part of the society, this is part of my duty also. And Prabhupada goes on to speak about the other parts of the Lord. The arms, they are the Kshatriyas, they're meant to protect. The Vaishyas, they are the belly, they are meant to be producing food. And Prabhupada says, in terms of producing food, the most important is to produce grains and to give protection to the cows, so the cows can produce milk, and from milk we can get milk products, and from the milk products you can get proper health and intelligence. And then the laborer class, who are not very intellectual, it's for them to provide a physical labor. And in this way, all parts of the body who are seen as parts of the Lord, they are meant to cooperate. I was also thinking, very interestingly, if the first part of the Virat Rupa being described is being described in terms of the four Vanas, it's really important to have a proper Varnashram system functioning in society. And Prabhupada said, when he appeared, it was an emergency. He dedicated a major part of his mission to establish the Brahmanical culture, the Brahmins in society. But also part of his mission was to established the other varnas, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, and the Shudras. And Prabhupada wanted that his followers work towards this going forward. Okay, we'll stop here for now. I produced a few slides. I don't want to, because I'm not covering those verses, but I thought maybe I will share these slides just for context because we're discussing. So this is the imaginary form of the Virat Rupa. You can see here, they are the different varnas and the ashramas. But more you can see when we get into the other verses, the 14 planetary systems. How there is the 14 planetary systems, the upper planetary systems, the middle planetary systems, and the lower planetary systems. It's divided into Swarga Loka, Martya Loka, and Patala Loka. Heavenly plane, earthly plane, and the lower plane. The highest is Satya Loka. That's where Lord Brahma resides. And practically in that planet, they are completely free of material desires. And then we can see the distance between the various planetary systems.
Okay, sorry for disturbing you. You're not sharing the slide you're talking about, actually.
Oh, okay. Is it something else I'm showing?
Yeah, it was the verses.
Okay, let me see again. Now?
Yes, Prabhu.
Now it's there. Oh, okay. Let me go through. So this is the imaginary form, the temporary form, the Virat Rupa, which these verses are describing. So those who are neophyte are struggling to conceive of the form of the Lord, to the descriptions here. And they will be described, first verse 37, in terms of the varnas, then in verses 38 to 41, in terms of the planetary systems, and then lastly, in terms of 42, in terms of other imaginations, the Swarga Loka, the Bhuvar Loka, and the Bhur Loka, head, navel, and legs. And, this is one graphic representation of the Virat Rupa. Then we'll talk about the different parts of the universes being part of the bodily limbs. Swarga Loka, Martya Loka, Patala Loka. And Satya Loka is the head in 38. The Brahmanas were the head in 37. The thighs Vitala is the thigh of the Lord in 38. And the Vaishyas are the thighs in 37. And the legs or the ankles and the soles are the Mahatala, Rasatala, Patala. And the Shudras are the legs. So there are different ways of conceiving of the Lord, and these are all going to be described in verses 36 to 42, just to give some context of what we discussed today and what will be discussed in the future verses also, verses 42. I hope you find that helpful. Thank you very much. We'll stop here. If there's any questions, comments, corrections, additions, reflections, please feel free to share.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Sundari.
Please accept my humble obeisances or Vishla Prabhupada.
So
we thank you for a wonderful class. Prabhuji, I have, could you explain a little bit about this imaginary form? What do we mean by imaginary form of the Lord?
So Imaginary form means like Prabhupada's, I quoted this purport from the 3rd chapter of the 1st canto. So Prabhupada says that the incarnations of the Lord are all spiritual, because the Lord is completely spiritual. But it's difficult for a certain class of people, Prabhupada calls them the neophytes, to really get their head around, to imagine or to conceive that the Lord could have form and a spiritual form. It's very difficult. So what Bhagavatam does, Bhagavatam is to help these people out. They describe what is known as the Virat Rupa in these verses. So they can think of, okay, there's the Brahmanas, there's the Kshatriyas, there's the Vaishyas, there's the Shudras. That's the body of the Lord. The Brahmanas are the head of the Lord. And then in terms of the planetary systems, Swarga Loka is the head and Patala Loka is the feet. So this is Prabhupada also says this is a material form. It's basically describing the universe as a form of the Lord, but it's a temporary form, and it's also a material form. It doesn't exist all the time. So that's what the Bhagavatam is describing. But just to help those people transition, from cannot getting their head around form towards ultimately the spiritual form. So if they conceive of the, you get the some, like the Indians, the early inhabitants of America, the Red Indians, they used to look at the sun and they would think, oh, that's the eye of the Lord. So when they look at the sun and they think that's the eye of the Lord, in their mind, the Lord has some form. Okay, and that's a higher concept and a higher understanding of the impersonal nature of the Lord. Like there's other parts of the Bhagavatam describes, like the trees are the hairs of the body of the Lord. So that when the person sees these material objects, immediately, say, imagine someone sees the trees and think, oh, that's the hairs of the Lord. They're thinking of the Lord in terms of a form. And that will help them transition ultimately in their progression towards a spiritual form of the Lord. So this is, although it is described as an imagination in a temporary, it's the Lord's imagination. It's a bona fide imagination. It's not some speculative imagination. So in that way, it's helpful towards people progressing towards understanding the form, the Lord as having form. Does that make sense?
Thank you, Prabhuji. So when we say this is temporary and is material, so this is not existing in the spiritual world.
No.
Okay.
See, all of these planets that are being described in all of these Purusha avatars, well, the Purusha avatars are eternal, they're spiritual, but all of these planetary systems, they come into being at a certain point in time and then they wound up. They don't exist eternally. So if we say Swarga Loka, which is the planet of Lord Brahma, is the head of the Lord, Swarga Loka, comes into manifestation and it gets destroyed at a certain point in time. So it's temporary. From that sense, it's temporary.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for the lovely class. So I just had a question about the for Varnas,
Mhm.
if everyone became a Brahmin, then would it still function like without the other three Varnas?
No, it couldn't, according to that it won't function. The body can't have a head only. For society to, for the body to function, you know, you put the food through the mouth, but it needs to be digested and so on. And the fact of the matter, Mataji, is that, you know, in the material world, there will always be people in the modes of ignorance, people in the mode of passion, and people in the mode of goodness. And there are people in the mixed modes, a mix between passion and goodness, mix between passion and ignorance, and so on. So we will always, as long as the material world exists, we'll have people under the different modes. And as long as there's people under the different modes, they will be automatically Shudras, there'll be Vaishyas, there'll be Kshatriyas, and there'll be Brahmanas. That is just the nature of the material world. And ultimately, if we understand the Vedic science, the goal is not to become a Brahmana. Even if one is in the Shudra class or the Vaishya class or the Kshatriya class, the goal is to become Vaishnavas, to become devotees of Krishna. So, in one sense, the Varna Ashram system, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, it's created by himself for the functioning of society. But this is not the ultimate. It's sort of a material arrangement. So, according to the Lord's own description of the situation, it's highly unlikely that society can all become Brahmanas, but it's quite probable, by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, that the whole society can become Vaishnavas, which is higher than Brahmanas. Although they're functioning as Shudras, as laborers, although they're functioning as Vaishyas, although they're functioning as Kshatriyas, as Vaishnavas, they're even higher than Brahmanas. I don't know if that makes sense to you, what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
There's no other comments or questions. Thank you very much, everyone, for your participation and your contribution. All glories to your service. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam. Panchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa. Koti Vaishnava ki.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for the wonderful.
Dandatam, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji, for nice class. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.